Let's talk the differences between an RDL, a Romanian deadlift, versus a normal deadlift, okay? RDL versus regular deadlift. One of my new online clients started with me. She's never really done a lot of deadlifts and RDLs before, so she's kind of struggling with the difference between both. So I said I'd do a video to help her, and I figured I'd share one here as well. So RDL versus a deadlift, okay? First things first. RDL, I want you to think of it as being a top-down deadlift. Regular deadlift, I want you to think of it as being a bottom-up deadlift, okay? The RDL is going to have a more eccentric, more focus on the eccentric, the lowering. A regular deadlift has a big focus on the concentric on the way up, not the eccentric, okay? So very different, okay? Top-down deadlift, bottom-down deadlift. That's thing number one. Thing number two, RDL is going to be more of a muscle-focused movement where you're trying to focus primarily on glutes, hamstrings, the hips, all right? A regular deadlift will focus on those things, but it involves using much more of your full body, okay? That's thing number two. Thing number three, the big difference is RDL doesn't touch the floor. Regular deadlift goes back to the floor every single rep. Let me explain in a bit more detail. I'm going to start my RDL out of a rack because it's supposed to start out of a rack on a height where basically you start from the lowering. Now, this is not a big deal, but this is just how generally the RDL is done correctly. So I figured I'd start from the rack to show you the difference, okay? So RDL is going to start from the top position, regular deadlift is going to start from the bottom. So I'm going to demonstrate. Let's do RDL first. So first thing first, I'm going to deadlift up, out of the rack. From here, RDL, okay? Very similar, but also very different. RDL, I'm going to really focus on pushing my bum back and not letting my knees come forward. This is key, okay? The bar doesn't need to go crazy low. I don't need to stretch too much. The big focus is on pushing the hips back. I'll demonstrate. As I go to lower, the bar goes just past my knees slightly, but the hips go back really far. The bar doesn't touch the floor. Hips away, hips in. Now let's do the exact same thing. Well, let's do it with the deadlift. And like I said, the deadlift is going to start from the bottom. RDL is going to start from the top. Very different. Deadlift, how do I get the bar off the floor? This is very key. I'm going to do the exact same movement as an RDL. Here's my hip hinge. Okay, here's my hinge. Now, I can't hinge any further. My hips are back as far as they're going to go. So how do I reach the barbell? Can't reach it with my arms. I can't reach it. If I reach it with my arms, I'm going to go through my back. So from here, the knees go forward until my hands can touch the bar. Now when I go to deadlift, it's going to start from the bottom, it's going to start from the floor, and it's going to start with a concentric. This is a deadlift is very concentric focused, it's not eccentric focused, okay? Regular deadlift from here, hinge, 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 bend, 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 back to the floor. Push, pull, hinge, 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 bend, bend, bend. Back up, back to the floor, bend, bend, bend. Okay, so the movements are very, very similar. The big difference, again, to review, is one starts from eccentric, RDL starts from eccentric, concentric on the deadlift. Number two, RDL focuses more on the muscle than it does on the movement, okay? Regular deadlifts are more of a strength-based, full body movement. RDL is going to be primarily glutes, hips, hamstrings, all right? Number three, RDL doesn't go to the floor. Barbell goes back to the floor on deadlifts every single time, all right? Very similar, but very different. Important to learn the differences of both and to learn how and when to use them. So I hope this helps. And if you have any questions or anything, drop them down below. Always love to hear from you. Cheers.